All right, we're ready to kick it off.
All right, hello everyone, and thank you all so much for joining us today. I am Isai Robledo. I'll be your moderator for today's session. I'm very excited that we have a student and a parent with us today. You've heard a lot of data and best practices and very helpful information. And so one of the things that we wanted to emphasize in this are the stories behind those best practices and the information that you're hearing today. And so what better way to do that than to hear directly from a student and a parent perspective. And I think, again, there's a lot of richness in the details of their stories. And so rather than speaking for them, I'll allow them to introduce themselves briefly.
Go ahead, Elizabeth, you can go first.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Elizabeth Ekstrand. I am a current first-year student at a liberal arts college in Minnesota, but I graduated from Middle College High School at Durham Tech in 2021. And I am a very, very proud alumnus, and I would absolutely recommend the school to everybody. So I'm not a traditional dual enrollment student, but you know, middle college, early college, cooperative and innovative, very similar. So I had a great experience.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Tony Reggi. I work for the North Carolina Community College System, and I'm a parent of college-age children. My oldest daughter opted not to do dual enrollment, but then again, my oldest son did. And so I had a good contrast of both options, and the career track and path that that these two older children have taken is diverse and unique, but both are successful, but in different ways and with a lot of different stories behind their success. Glad to be with you today, and anything I can do to promote your ideas of dual enrollment, I'd be glad to. I might add that we homeschool our children, and my daughter successfully graduated top of her class at NC State, and my son is doing extremely well at Nash with a 4.0 GPA and planning to transfer to ECU or to State as well. Two different paths, two different children, but both have exciting goals and outcomes.
Thank you, Elizabeth and Tony, for sharing that. And again, we wanted to get a variety of perspectives on this, again, being from the middle college experience at Durham Tech, along with Tony's homeschool parent perspective. And so let's just get right into this. One of the things that I would hoping you would share with our attendees are, could you just tell us a little bit about how and when you learned about dual enrollment options available to you or to your students?
Yeah, so when it came to my dual enrollment, I was a student at Chapel Hill High School, which is a very traditional public school. We don't even use the, at the time, I guess that's still true, we didn't use the block schedule. And so a lot of people did not know that middle college existed, especially because even though it's a cooperative between 3 school districts, it's primarily housed under Durham Public Schools, and Chapel Hill High is obviously under Chapel Hill Carrboro City Schools. But I did some research and I found out that middle college was an alternative option. And given some of the experiences I had in high school, I sort of decided that it was time for me to change paths to explore the college experience a little bit and break out of my shell and meet some different types of people, and also get to know the Durham community a little better as a Chapel Hill resident. So mostly my introduction to dual enrollment came from the school website. There was the counselors, the guidance department said, well, we're having Mr. William Evans, who is our middle college's college liaison, come over and talk a little bit about the school. So I'm like, well, I still don't know if I want to transfer schools, but you know, it can't hurt to go, right? And so we went to the session. A lot of us asked him questions. He did an awesome job. And from there, I was just, I denied it at the time, but I was pretty much committed after that. So.
Well, thank you, Elizabeth. That's a pretty good perspective in marketing by our colleges. That's really good. As for me, shoot, probably 8 or 9 years ago, I was involved in the transition reentry and the adult prison education program with the North Carolina Department of Public Safety. And in those roles, I was always looking for educational avenues specifically for the offender population, but that brought me very close to a relationship with the community colleges. And early on, I was made aware or became educated in all the wonderful things our community colleges have to offer for a wide variety of people. And so, being a homeschool parent, I was, of course, opted to see what options were available for my students. And the dual enrollment program came up, and I looked into it. And of course, neither one of my children were old enough at that time to enroll, but I kept interest in it. And then I came to the community college system about 5 or 6 years ago and became very heavily involved in the career and technical education aspect of the program and the Perkins grant, which and the CCP pathways are a big part of what we do through our grant. So I became very involved in the grading, the development, and the outcomes of those pathways. And so I started looking for my kids, of course. And my daughter was not too interested. She had a pretty good idea of what she wanted to do already. But my son, he became very interested. So my involvement with the community college staff, Dr. Lisa Eads at that time, she and I sat down and talked a long time about this and about the ups and downs. And truthfully, the perfect fit that this was for homeschoolers. We were part of a big co-op, and we did a lot of stuff through the co-op. And my students and my kids, they of course they did good. They're my kids, but they did really well in that environment. And so the academic piece of it was intriguing to my son. And then, of course, also the hands-on aspect of the CTE portion of it, which I was proud that he went into. And I went through the process with Dr. Eads at that time, and we talked about what benefit it would be to my kids. And of course, we'll probably talk more about that. I think that's coming up. But anyways, so my professional involvement with CTE and the community college system, and through what I did with prison education, introduced me to what the community colleges had to offer. And then as I became involved in career and technical education, it really drilled down into the benefits of dual enrollment for the students and everything they could get. And so I was very happy to learn about it and to involve my oldest son in that.
Thank you. And I had a follow-up question to
Sure.
that for you both. And so Elizabeth, as you're leaving one educational context to leave your friends, that can also be a variable when you're debating on what to do, whether to go the middle college route or not. And then Tony, your students were also part of a cohort. And so having to maybe step away from that at times to engage in these college courses. Can you just talk to us about what that process was like, the decision-making process was like for y'all?
Yeah, so it was definitely a struggle to break the news to my closest friend. At the time, unfortunately, my high school, as teenagers tend to do, there was not really a culture of branching out beyond your friend group from middle school. So as it was, one of my friends in my friend group from middle school had moved away. So it was just pretty much my other friend and I who had spent the first 2 years of high school together. And when I told her, she was just like, oh no. Like I could kind of tell she was subconsciously hoping that I wouldn't go, but at the same time, she recognized that I was really invested in the opportunity to attend Durham Tech and get a new educational experience that I felt would be more beneficial for me. So eventually she did accept it. And honestly, the one thing I can say, and Chapel High School is a great school, but the one thing I can say is that in transferring, I wanted to build sort of a place for myself in the community that I didn't feel I had at my first high school. So beyond my best friend, who I felt horrible about leaving behind, but at least we could see each other on the weekends and whatnot. I really felt that, this is a place where I can really try and establish myself as part of the community in a way that my high school made kind of difficult just by the way it was set up. So it was honestly not too difficult to transition, I suppose, because I was looking for something different.
Oh, well, thank you, Elizabeth. That's interesting. For my kids, it was they had a really good social network at the co-op. I mean, they had kids they would hang around with and talk to and call about homework and do some study groups and things with. And they're also part of a larger group down in Garner, North Carolina, a play group that they enmeshed with hundreds of kids down there. So they had a rather large social group, but they weren't tied to that social group via an education format so much. They had those friends. They were able to express those friendships outside of school because they would, they went to the co-op once a week, but the rest of the week they would do homeschool-ish for several hours a day, and then hook up with their friends, I guess, as any other high school kid would after school. But then I took Nathaniel out. Of course, Lauren, she went to NC State in college textile design and fashion design. And that was a fairly prescribed course of study. So looking back, the CCP or dual enrollment may not have worked as well for her in that particular prescribed program. It has worked well for her now simply because NC State has offered her a job and she starts next week. So it's turned out really well for her. But anyways, for my son, he's a teenage young man. He's 20 now, but at Nash. But his social group revolved around some school, but more about his hobbies. He was big into gaming, and now he's he's 20 years old and he's owned more cars than I have, and I'm not 20, but he's rebuilding the engine on one. So, and he works with his friends on those hobbies and stuff. So, and his friend network has expanded at Nash. He's into PLC and robotics, and he's really getting into that. And he enjoys the new friends he makes out there, and he does really well with students who are older than he is. And at Nash, there's a few of those sitting around, and they'll do their labs together. And of course, he completed all of his gen eds while he's still in high school doing homeschool. He got all of his gen eds done. So he had to go to Nash. He had like maybe a year left to do his hands-on his CTE portion of it. And of course, ECU will accept 64 of all of the hours he's accumulated through his AES degree. So, but friendship-wise and making the change was not big for him. He was somewhat nervous going into what you call a more formal classroom setting. But you have to be there, a certain time and do your work and work and interact with other students, which he did a lot of that at the co-op. But this is like, 5 days a week, he had to be up and be at school and be involved with different groups of people along the way. And it was a good learning exercise for him. He made a lot of great new friends. And he's right now he's working on his PLC 2 and 3. So it's been a good change for him, and he's done really well with it.
Thank you. So could you both elaborate a little bit on what type of support structures or support did you receive either from the college, from high schools, co-op groups, as you were transitioning into college classes?
So for me, honestly, the school staff at Middle College were fantastic from the beginning. They had all sorts of sessions for us to not only get to know our classmates, but also to familiarize us with the academic structure at Durham Tech. And the great thing I think about having both a Middle College liaison to Durham Tech and then a Durham Tech liaison to CCP is that those two people often work together to fill in the gaps of what we might not know. So both Mr. Evans and Dr. Rio were fantastic in that respect. Also, in terms of support, I think honestly a lot of it did come from the professors, even though they treated us the same as other college students and didn't see us as, oh, you're just high schoolers. They provided a lot of good tips, and they were always ready to help. And these are people who have very intense workloads and they have lives of their own. And even so, they just every time we had an inquiry or a question, they were so happy to answer. And that was something that I hadn't always experienced, and I was extremely grateful for. And then not to mention all the other resources at Durham Tech that were constantly publicized to us, like the Center for Academic Excellence. I made up a test there once. There are also tutors, and then things like Upswing, online tutoring. There were just so many resources at the school that I think a lot of us were almost shocked coming out of high schools, where it's like, well, if the teacher doesn't want to give you the answer and your friend doesn't necessarily know, you might be out of options. So I was really pleased with that.
Sheesh, I feel kind of bad because, I work for the system office. And before that, I worked in prison education, the adult prison education system. And so I knew people at all 58 of the community colleges. And so I had some natural segues in there. Uh, when I went to the college, as pretty much as soon as I stepped in the door, there were people I knew as soon as I saw them. And that was a really big help. So professionally, it was a big help to me having those relationships and linkages already built. When I went to a college, especially in prison education, we developed a lot of classwork and coursework for these men and women. And now, as I was developing the same for my son, to use those skills and those relationships, not as an advantage of what other people had to offer, because the colleges are extremely friendly to anyone who walks through the door, but it helps to have that previous relationship with folks. And of course, Dr. Eads was a big help in, of course, the biggest question I had, and I don't know if we'll talk about this later, were textbooks. I said, well, homeschoolers, I'm sorry, your child, you got to buy your own textbooks. I said, what? And I thought that was an issue, but then come to find out, most dual enrollment kids have to buy their own textbooks anyways. It's a very few counties provide those resources. But once I got past that hurdle, the next thing was the transcript, which is an extremely important document. And even though we had on that transcript classes from both Nash and Johnson Community College, the other homeschool pieces of it, we had to make sure that they were correctly written, correctly verified, and documented. That if someone asked, well, how you say your son got an A in science, how can you prove that? And so we had to have the documentation to show all of those things by end of year tests and all the stuff that homeschools must go through to show their viability. And so we had all those records, those documents, and we got the transcript done, written, and it was accepted by, NC State accepted my daughters, and Nash and Johnson both accepted my sons. And now, as Nathaniel's going to move on to either the ECU or state, they will have the associate degrees on that transcript. So overall, I would say, as I observed the colleges in their working with people, they are exceptionally outgoing in helping students. A couple of times we were panicked because my daughter needed a particular class, and I called up a couple of folks. Is it too late to get my daughter or my son into this class? And of course, they would do this for anyone. Let me emphasize that. The colleges would bend over backwards for anyone. But I called up and they said, well, sure, Tony, I think we can do that. Just our policy is, and they stuck to policy, is that, and they was quoted, and we worked it out to where my kids could get into those classes. So really, Isai, my professional relationships and the skill and ability and academic acumen of my children, and relationships formed, all those came together in a perfect kind of way for my oldest son and my daughter. She took several classes at the community college when they wouldn't fit in with her schedule at state. She took some classes and transferred them in. So for both my kids, I found the college staff and, of course, the system office staff to me was extremely beneficial in a lot of knowledge and understanding about the whole system with Dr. Eads when she was over the CCP program. And then the relationships developed over the years with folks and understanding what the community college system is. And if there are any parents listening, I would strongly encourage you to knock on the door of every community college and see who they are. You will be amazed. Go in and see some students working on some machines. Go in and sit in on their calculus class, and then go sit on an NC State calculus class. You'll see there's not any difference. Of course, it's either one's over my head, but still. And I will say this: I'm not going to name any names, but one prestigious Southern private Methodist university paralegals scored less on their students scored not as well on the paralegal exam as one of our community colleges. So anybody that wants to compare apples to apples, we'll stand up next to you any day. And then when the people graduate, let's compare student debt as opposed to real income. And I think you will find by far that your student who, I'm gonna push CTE, of course, graduated from a CTE program of study with a skill, he'll own his first house and his first car before your college graduate will. That's all I'm saying. Thanks.
Thank you, Tony. I had a follow-up question on the transition to college for you, Elizabeth, and for your children, Tony. And that really is just the mental aspect of it. You hear the term dual enrollment a lot, and that's very important because you are a high school student at the same time that you are a college student. And so, homework aside, at what point, Elizabeth, do you remember feeling like a college student? And the same for you, Tony. Is there at any point that your children spoke up and shared something about feeling like a college student?
So I honestly felt like a college student from the beginning because the professors, again, they really did not discriminate between high school students and college students. It didn't, I was in a night class with a 50-year-old who was earning a 2-year degree in business admin to be promoted in his workplace. And, my professor was like, you're both students, myself and him. You're not, it's not that, of course you have different levels of life experience, but you deserve respect and you deserve my help and you deserve to learn. And that was really beneficial to me. Same thing with I was actually in a 4-person, for some reason they didn't cancel this, which I'm very grateful for, but I was in a 4-person intermediate French class, and suddenly, like, my teacher was just my professor was just posing all these questions to us, and she was really encouraging us to speak out. She wasn't just going over grammar on the board and then handing out worksheets. She really wanted us to use our French and improve it. And I was like, this is really something. But I think the moment where it really hit home for me came in the spring semester of 2020, because my first semester was in fall of 2019, when I was at the Orange County campus of Durham Tech taking a biology class with Dr. Dorothy Wood, who is absolutely fantastic. And she said, we were learning how to use the microscopes in the lab, and she said, these microscopes are so new and so nice. Oftentimes at UNC and State, they don't even have microscopes like this. And I'm like, wow, I am still legally, I was then, I'm still legally a minor, and I'm using microscopes that are nicer than the ones at some of the top public universities in the state. Wow, that is profound. And I'm being taught how to use them while we're looking at actual specimens. This is an experience. This is a real college experience.
Yeah, and I would echo all of those things. Probably for Nathaniel, when he stepped onto the campus and looked around and saw, the campus itself, the buildings, went into the library and saw the vast amount of resources there, the technology that was available. And then when he sat down in his first class, and the instructors, they said, this is who we are, this is what you're going to learn, and here are all there's tutors available, and there's all these assistive technologies available should you need them, but whatever, you're here to learn, and you're going to learn, and we'll do all we can to make your stay in this particular class, or all his classes successful. And then I think it really hit him when he looked around, and like Elizabeth, he saw students of all ages, races, ethnic backgrounds, you name it. They were sitting in a class with him, and he saw them all learning and pursuing the same goals educationally, and those kinds of things were good for him to experience in class and in college. But of course, from the day he decided to do it, I explained to him, you're a college student, and sometimes you worry about the maturity level, of a 10th, 11th grader going into a college setting. But, Nathaniel's, he's he's about 6'5". And, he's not an intimidating young man, but I think people would approach him differently if he was, more my height and my size as being a young man. But I think the cultural differences of understanding a college situation and the common goal of learning. And once he grasped all those, the first couple of days of school, he realized that, I'm not in Kansas anymore. And so he had to put on his Ruby slippers and tap them 3 times and come to the real world.
Thank you. A different question, just from an academic perspective, and I'm not sure if this would apply to either of your experiences, but Elizabeth and Tony, did you take any advanced placement courses while you were also taking dual enrollment courses? And if so, how did they compare?
So I didn't take, since middle college is, a cooperative and innovative high school, all of my classes while I was there were college classes, with the exemption of one high school class that was an honors class taught by a middle college teacher. But at Chapel Hill High School, I did take one AP class during my sophomore year. And honestly, that AP class, well, the teacher did a good job. Like, that AP class was actually part of the motivation to come to middle college for me, because it was AP World History, and world history is a subject that I feel like deserves a lot of thought, a lot of analysis. I mean, human history is profound and expansive and really interesting, right? But the way that it ended up being taught in 10th grade for me was just facts thrown at us, just like, get this, okay, sorry, I wish we could spend more time on Mesopotamia, but we got to move on. We have our next quiz. We got to be ready for the AP test. The AP test could ask you about, China in the 1920s, so we can't spend time on, the Islamic world in the 1300s. And it was just information overload, and it seemed like it was just we were just being thrown information and throwing it back, and then eventually all that mattered in the end was the test. And so once I had that experience, I was like, well, it was not a bad experience, but I want to be in a class where the professor has more control, because I believe if my teacher had more control over the the structure of the AP course, that it would have been much more interesting and fulfilling. And I felt that if I came to Durham Tech, that the professors there's a state curriculum, yes, but the professors have a lot more agency, and they're trusted to pursue the materials and the way they want to. And I felt that, if a professor wanted to stop and have a discussion about, and really develop some of those soft skills about material, they could do it. They wouldn't have to move on. And sure enough, when I took American history at Durham Tech, it was a lot of great discussion, a lot of great observation, talking about historical trends, as opposed to just, fact after fact after fact. And then, oh, I forgot about that because it's not that test anymore. So definitely I'm biased, but I definitely preferred my Durham Tech courses to my advanced placement course.
Wow. Well, in the homeschooling co-op, the AP option, I don't think existed. However, to speak to the quality of education that my kids had, my daughter was offered a free ride at Wake Forest in English. They would have paid for all 4 years. So the quality of education they got was, I can't imagine it being any less than AP. Mathematically, they both did well once they reached the college level. My daughter, actually, she does OutSchool. She teaches Latin on OutSchool. So I don't know if you call those AP classes or not, but they excelled in particular courses, and they have demonstrated a mastery of those simply by the educational offerings they got. And like I say, my daughter teaches Latin online to a lot of students. So, and she also taught ESL to Chinese students. Every morning she'd get up at 5 o'clock and teach English to students who had broadcast in from Asia. So whether they were AP courses considered to be those or not, I don't know, but I do know the academic level of them afforded them skills and abilities that are not available to a lot of other students. I don't know of any other high school student that teaches Latin or ESL, as far as that goes, but there may be out there, but I don't know of them. Yeah.
Thank you both. And looking back at your experience, what would you highlight or say were some of the greatest benefits to you having participated in dual enrollment courses?
In one word, confidence. The confidence that I felt, obviously everybody is not the most confident during their freshman year of high school, but the improvement between like my second semester of 10th grade and my first semester of 11th grade coming to middle college, the improvement in my confidence was absolutely exponential. From day one, I could tell that the school staff really wanted to support me, and they wanted to see all of us succeed. And furthermore, that there was a sense that, as opposed to competing against each other, it, as often happens in a high school format, it's that everybody is pursuing their goals together. And so it's not so much a competition as a competition again, like to be the best in terms of, compared to others, as it is to be the best version of yourself, and share that with your peers. And that really helped me. And then of course my professors also did a fantastic job of aiding my confidence. So I was, unfortunately, Durham Tech doesn't offer French language courses beyond intermediate French 1 because of lack of interest. I can't fault them for it, but I am really interested in French, and I really enjoy it. So I went up to my professor and I said, do you think it would be crazy or unrealistic if I applied to North Carolina Governor's School for the French program? And she said, no, I don't think so at all. I think you have what it takes, and I'd be happy to recommend you. So she did that. And I'd had so much hesitance because I was like, oh, the other kids applying will be in AP French. I'm only in intermediate French 1. Is this a pipe dream? But I just, the school staff kept encouraging me. My professors kept encouraging me. They were like, no, you can do this. So I applied, and then I ended up getting in. The saddest part of that story, of course, is that Governor's School 2020 was canceled due to COVID-19, which is not anything that we can help. But so of course, I wish I had the experience, but just the experience of gaining that confidence was really important to me. And even outside of the classroom, like I decided to run for vice president of Youth in Action, which is my school's volunteer club. And, before that, I had never seen myself as a leadership type. And now I feel like it's an integral part of myself. Between Youth in Action, which the next year I was the president of, and then also NC PIRG, which is a student advocacy group based on Durham Tech's campus. But between those leadership opportunities, I really felt that I could speak out, that I had a place, and that I had a bunch of people on my side. I had a team, and that was something that I feel like could only have been attained in such a diverse environment as Durham Tech, with such amazing professors and with a small student body of equally motivated and diverse and fantastic students.
I'm sorry, Isai, I got caught up in Elizabeth's answer. And what was the question? Which one are we on? I'm sorry.
Just basically, what was the biggest benefit for having participated in enrollment courses?
Of course, as a parent, the first thing I'll do is reach for my wallet, and it's a lot more full now than it would have been had Nathaniel not opted for those classes. The financial benefit for parents is phenomenal. I mean, the dual enrollment classes were free. We had to buy a few textbooks, and even then, the instructors were very, very accommodating. Say, share textbooks, copy assignments, do everything you can to lower the cost. And even in those costs, they were reduced quite a bit. So the financial impact was pretty big. My son, he got, I'm trying to think of how many hours he got, probably over 30 hours to do enrollment, and those were free tuition hours, and they transferred directly into Nash Community College. And so he started in with only like maybe a year and a half left of CTE courses to take. And so that's the second thing, the timing. They can finish a lot quicker and get a lot of more stuff done. And technically, of course, I'm a CTE guy, career and technical education. My thing is to see the benefit of the student and their ability to excel, to do well in a program, to get done early, and to get, I hate to say to get a jump on life earlier, but to be better prepared for the life choices they make earlier in life, other than, having to wait. We got a thing from a program a while back, and it says, yeah, you go to get your 4-year degree, and your 4-year degree is a time to explore and develop yourself and find out who you are. But then once you understand who you are, then go get a master's degree and start drilling down on what you really want to do. So, you're talking 6 years of college before you decide what you want to do. In a CTE program of study, you sit up front, you take the assessment, and you say, man, I think these skilled trades are places that fit for me. You go and tour your community college, and you spend some time there. And while you're in classes, and Nathaniel, while you're taking, your psych class between breaks, there, go over and see what you want to do. Go to visit, your welding lab and your industrial maintenance lab and your auto body lab, and see which one you like to do. And so he did that, and he settled on industrial systems. So the whole progress of the benefit of the students being actively involved in a college setting, the ability to earn credentials early on and set your life track. And Nathaniel, he's 20. And right now he's getting job offers from manufacturers as well as auto mechanic places. Land Rover called him up. They said, when you get done, give us a call. Toyota called him up. Start over here right now tomorrow for $20 an hour. He says, well, I'm not settled on auto body yet or auto mechanics yet. He says, it doesn't matter. If you come to us, we'll start you out here and we'll let you go to school and teach you what you need to know. So he has just a lot of options early in life. And some of us don't discover those particular places in life until much later on. But I think through dual enrollment, he's able to explore and understand and save money, which I liked. And I see him happy. I've never seen a kid come home with greasy hands and being so happy. He loves what he does, and he loves the choices he's made.
That's great. That's great for both of you.
Yeah. And one other thing, say, he was involved in the apprenticeship program at Cummins, and that was due to the course that he took. And what Pell didn't cover, they covered. So he got an apprenticeship program, and his whole education for the first year was paid for. Other than Pell, anything above that, the Cummins diesel paid for. So, and he was just a great experience all around.
That's great. I'm glad to hear about the confidence that it provided for you, Elizabeth, the financial benefit to you, Tony, and to your son as well. And so just in thinking about your experiences or their experiences, what would you change about the program having gone through that?
COVID-19. No, just kidding. That, unfortunately, I always say my greatest regret of being at middle college is that I only got to spend 7 months in person with my classmates before I had to finish the rest of my experience out online. And I will say that the school staff were really fantastic in shepherding us all online and guiding us through what was an extremely difficult year academically, socially, and otherwise. But yeah, in terms of what I changed, honestly, this is probably not something that anybody can help, who's here today. But after I graduated, one of my professors emailed me and said, "Would you mind writing the Orange County Commissioners about encouraging them not to delay the expansion of the Durham Tech Orange County campus?" And I said, "Sure," because honestly, if I could change anything, it's that I'm a Chapel Hill resident, and Orange County doesn't really have a dedicated community college. We have a very small auxiliary campus of Durham Tech, but it was a drive, at least before COVID, it was a drive, and it was a transportation commitment. And I even recruited a few students who said, "Look, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to come because transportation is a barrier, even though we do get free bus passes. It can be difficult. Not everybody has their license early and whatnot." Unfortunately, the Orange County Commissioners voted. It was a 4-3 vote to delay the construction of a second Durham Tech Orange County campus building by 5 years, which is a little bit. So if there's anything that I would change, and anything, if there are any elected officials watching this, or people who are going to make informed decisions about voting in local government, definitely, well, please support the expansion of community colleges and dual enrollment programs, because I understand there are a lot of priorities in this state, but as Tony was saying, community college just provides a wealth of opportunities for everybody who attends them, no matter where they're going. And of course, not every county has its own dedicated community college, so it is absolutely vital that these programs be expanded and be accessible to everyone, both in terms of transportation and course options.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That's very insightful. You have, of course, I oversee the Perkins grant, which is, it's sizable, but it's not an overwhelming amount. But we can't do capital projects. Sorry, or I'd write you a check and let you build a campus out there. But we can't do that. And Michelle Ayers one too, and she has a lot of insight into the advantages of having a local community college through Career and College Promise programs, and that's a good argument too. But if I would change anything, I don't know right offhand that I would change, but I would encourage more marketing to be done for this program, and we have campaigns, but most of those campaigns are limited to the website of the college, or you might see a billboard every now and then. But we through Perkins, we do a lot of marketing for CTE programs, but we need to figure out good ways to market this process to parents, reach parents where they are, in ways that in the media and the social aspects of where they are and where they meet and who they talk to, and let them know about what's going on, and then show them the benefit of all aspects of learning, not just the college transfer, which is a great path. And I'm sure, Elizabeth, you'll do great. You'll do well wherever you go after Durham Tech. But the CTE pathway as well. I don't want my son to be a welder. He needs to go be a lawyer. Well, man, maybe he don't like to read and write. Maybe he likes to sit down with his hands on something and, and create, and just engage and encourage parents to understand what the whole educational process is. And then, if I changed anything, I would, and most colleges do this anyway, I'm pretty sure, is use the assessment process to see where the students fit. Too often a college student come, I want college transfer because my mom says I had to, and we don't offer that assessment for the students. Say, well, wow, I assess as a paralegal, or I assess as an engineer, and I like this hands-on stuff. I like the math, doesn't scare me. And then maybe, not to create havoc within a family, but give these young men and women tools to argue for themselves and show this is where I should be, and be there and be there for them to help them in those discussions with their parents.
Thank you. Thank you both. So we have about 8 minutes left in our session, and I just have one final question, and I want the opportunity for attendees to post questions in the chat as well. But just Elizabeth, right? The majority of the attendees are educators, but if there was a high school student watching and listening right now, what piece of advice would you share with them about dual enrollment? And the same with you, Tony. You touched on it a little bit earlier, but if there's a parent of a high school student watching and listening right now, what piece of advice would you share with them?
Probably the primary piece of advice I would share is don't be shy when it comes to reaching out to the representatives of these programs, because they, goodness, I mean, if my school staff were on this call, they would probably be talking all about don't think that we're trying to shut people out. We want to welcome everybody. We are looking to recruit as many people as are interested in our program as we can. And if you have any questions, if you have any doubts, these individuals are there to help you answer them. And so just please contact them if you have any of these questions. And even this was one of the things that really helped me decide was I asked Mr. William Evans, our college liaison and primary recruitment officer, if he could put me in touch with a current student. She is now about to graduate from UNC, but with a current student at Middle College, and he said yes. So I ended up talking to the student, and she was very insightful. Her answers to my questions were fantastic. And after a text conversation, I just said, Abigail, I think I want to come here. So I think basically to sum it up, if you're on the fence, please reach out. And because there are a lot of options, and you don't just have to talk to, the main recruitment officer, you can talk to students, you can talk to parents, all kinds of people out there waiting to welcome you into the program and discuss its benefits.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That was great. And I would echo everything she said. Never hesitate to reach out to your local community college. In my situation, we were looking for things for Nathaniel to do. And I called Will Vandermeulen, who's at Nash Community College. And he said, Tony, I said, I'll do for you what I do for every student and every parent. Come out here and I'll take you on a tour. So we went out and one-on-one personal tour. He walked Nathaniel through every CTE class, and Nathaniel got to look around. Matter of fact, he was thinking about doing going into some engineering, but he went in there and saw those guys were sitting behind computers and doing CAD work. He says, that's just not what I want to do. And he walked around in the industrial systems. He saw guys working on HVAC. He saw guys welding. He saw guys doing electricity. He saw guys doing mechanical stuff. He says, that's more of what I want to do. I want the hands-on stuff where I can fix things. And so that's the way he went. And he got his AAS in industrial systems, and now he's moving on to the PLC robotics. So I would encourage parents and students to talk to someone at the college. and there will be there. Talk to a faculty member or several faculty members, talk to advisors, talk to a group of people so you can get a whole look at what the college is like. Because sometimes, just talking to a registrar or a counselor may not give you a really good snapshot or a good picture of what the whole environment entails and what any particular programs of study entail. Besides looking at a program of study has a long list of courses, the student looks at that and says, man, I got to spend, at 18, this is a big deal. I got to spend 2 years of my life doing that. I take them over to the Weather Lab, and it says, yeah, you'll do some some higher math, but you also get to burn stuff up, man. That's always a lot of fun for an 18-year-old guy or lady, as far as that goes. But yeah, I would encourage them, like Elizabeth said, reach out and talk to someone at the college, and let them be a champion for what they do, because people are always like to champion who they are and what they do. And I'm thinking you see all the benefits for your student, for yourself, for just for the community in general of putting your and of course, Elizabeth, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna push CTE. Get them in a CTE class. Teach them how to fix things. We don't run. There's not a day goes by we don't have a webinar where we hear about employers, every employer having a sign up in the driveway saying help wanted. And there's a demand that needs to be met.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you.
Yeah, and those were all of the questions that we had prepared for this panel. We have about 3 minutes left. And so if attendees, if you would, feel free to ask any questions that you have for Tony or Elizabeth, put those in the chat box and I'll be happy to pass those along.
The majority of our comments right now are just praises. Elizabeth, for you being so excited and just such a great model for all of our students.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Elizabeth, what is your major right now? Where are you studying?
So I am that person who has so many interests that it's sometimes hard to figure out what I want to do. So currently, it was also hard to do during a pandemic. So currently I am studying at McAllister College in St. Paul, Minnesota. And over the course of this year, I'm going to figure out what I want to major in.
Oh, okay, cool. I would strongly do something in advertising, because you have a lot of enthusiasm. But anyways, all right. I'm sorry, there was a question about how to reach out to homeschool folks. It's like any other marketing campaign. You got to meet them where they're at. Most of the time, if it's part of a co-op, find out where the co-op meets. Like we met down in, was it Clayton? I think it was in Clayton. Yeah, down in Clayton, and just find out who the parents are and where they meet and where they gather. And a lot of times this will be they don't have PTA meetings, but they do have parent meetings for homeschool groups. Find out where they meet and go talk to them about who you are and what you do. It may be true that a lot of people see homeschool students as on that 4-year track, but being involved with these students for many, many, many years, I see some of these people are left behind because, like I say, they don't want to go to a 4-year college. They have no interest in being a doctor or a lawyer or a teacher. They want to do something that's productive, and like anything else, show them what you have to offer, and make yourself available. And of course, anything I can do to help, be more than happy to. But find out where they meet in your area and find out who they are. Department of Public Instruction, Elizabeth, I'm pretty sure, has a list of all your homeschools, and that may be public information. I'm not sure, but call DPI, and they have a homeschool, a person who's over homeschool in private schools, and they will be able to be your first resource to find out who these folks are and where they meet. And then from there, do your own marketing campaign locally. And remember, you're talking to regular high school kids. They're not, don't want to talk about the stigma that homeschoolers have often, but I've known hundreds of them, and they're regular kids. There's no real difference between them and other kids at all. So just reach out to them and be prepared, because now I will say this: the parents are far more inquisitive and far more involved because they teach their kids every day. And so they want to be really involved that the decisions and the stuff their kids are hearing is accurate and beneficial to them.
And we are right at time. So thank you all again for all of your work and feedback and insights on this panel.
Thank you.